Wow. The Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup is really back after a 2-year hiatus. And I don't think people realize just how big of a deal this is. I mean, this is the oldest soccer competition in the United States, starting all the way back in 1914. And until the pandemic hit, it had never missed a single year. Not even for World War II, which, canceled almost everything back in the day. Now, it is true, I did make a video where I aired my grievances on this tournament, and my opinions haven't really changed from that video. I mean, I still hate the regional formats. But what's also true is that I love the U.S. Open Cup, and I think it's one of the most underappreciated soccer events in this country, at least by MLS fans. Which is a shame because this tournament has produced some magical moments, which I will get to after this sponsored message. BETUS.com. All the soccer betting in one place, including MLS and USL Championship. Bet on results, prop bets, and if you're really up for it, you can get a parlay going. Oh yeah, bet a little bit of money, and if you get some results to go your way, win a lot of bit of money back. Get a 125% sign-up bonus by using the promo code DANNYT, so there you go, that's like free chips on the house. BetUS has been serving clients for 25-plus years and prides itself on being known as America's favorite sportsbook. BetUS, that is BETUS.com. BetUS, link to join in the description below. The magic of the U.S. Open Cup. Hey, remember how awful the 2013 DC United team was? A team that won just 3 games in the regular season with none of them being on the road? They were in serious danger of losing their opening round game to the Richmond Kickers of lower division USL. But after a scoreless regulation and scoreless extra time, that match headed to PKs where DC eventually won 4-2. After narrowly escaping the cup set, one would have thought DC would have been knocked out soon after, but that's not what happened. DC would then go off to knock off Philly, the Revs, and my Chicago Fire to advance to the final against Real Salt Lake, a team that would later that year also appear in the MLS Cup final. Perhaps on any other normal day, this would have been a blowout, but in the Open Cup, anything can happen. And DC had the magic. Lewis Neal, a guy that scored just 2 other times in his 3-year DC United career, would find the winner. And wooden spoon recipient DC United would shock everyone and lift the U.S. Open Cup. Hey, remember 2009 Seattle Sounders in their inaugural MLS season? Trying to become the first expansion team to win the Open Cup since the '98 Chicago Fire. In the final, they'd be taking on defending champs DC United. Freddie Montero would score off the Josh Wicks rebound to give the Sounders the lead, and then Josh Wicks would go on to stomp on Montero. Jesus Christ, dude. I think it's so funny that he's trying to argue this. Bro, what? You jumped on a player that was on the ground with 2 feet into his stomach. I don't think you could do that move in FIFA, or hell, let alone most fighting games for that matter. And this was right after a goal was scored, where the side ref is obviously looking in that direction. It's also on national TV, so cameras are all on you. Yeah, man, you're going to get a red card for that. Oh, by the way, Sounders did end up winning. And in case you were wondering, Josh Wicks is still playing in Sweden now, so good for him, I guess. Okay, now, wait, let's be honest. Even though this channel mostly covers Major League Soccer, and even though MLS is obviously my favorite league, with that being said, undoubtedly the best part of the U.S. Open Cup are the Cinderella runs by lower division teams. The most famous instance being the 1999 Rochester Raging Rhinos, which is the only lower division team to win the Open Cup since MLS teams first began playing in 1996. Now, I did already make a video on this team. It's actually one of my favorite videos I've ever made, so go ahead and check out that one after this one. But while the Rhinos may have been the most famous Cinderella run, they certainly weren't the only ones. Hey, remember the 2008 Charleston Battery? The last lower division side to make the U.S. Open Cup final? Fun fact, that team had Ozzie Alonso, who's since become a pretty good player in MLS. Unlike the Rhinos, who were consistently the best team in USL for years, the Battery were a mid-table team. You see, in 2008, there were 11 teams in USL First Division, with Charleston finishing in 5th, one game below 500 and a goal differential of -2. Okay, now, it's not like they were a completely incompetent team, but also not one where you'd expect them to beat multiple MLS teams in the same tournament, which is exactly what they did, knocking off both Texas teams, the Dynamo and FC Dallas, in back-to-back rounds. In the semifinals, they would face off with a familiar opponent, the Seattle Sounders. Yeah, remember, this is the last year of the Sounders in the USL. They also knocked off a couple MLS teams to get to this point as well, taking out Chivas USA and the Kansas City Wizards. Eventually, the Battery would prevail in this all-USL semifinal. Setting up a final matchup, a true David versus Goliath of Charleston Battery against DC United. Geez, seriously, I'm bringing up DC again? Luciano Emilio scored just 4 minutes in, and it looked like this one was going to get ugly fast. However, on the goal, Emilio would re-aggravate a groin injury and had to come off. Charleston would tie the match just a few minutes later in the 10th. After tying up the match, Charleston had their moments, but couldn't quite grab a second goal. But how different would history have been if this shot, which hit the post, would have bounced in? DC United's Fred would get behind the back line and poke it in, and DC United would ultimately hold on for the win. Maybe it's because Charleston didn't win, or maybe it's because some time has passed since this run, but it does kind of feel like this magical run by the 2008 Charleston Battery has been forgotten. But make no mistake about it, they almost, very, very nearly became just the second lower division team to win this tournament. Now, I should say, part of the reason why some believe that we'll never see another lower division team win the US Open Cup is just because of how much the field has expanded. For instance, in 2008, there were just 40 teams in the tournament, and from an MLS standpoint, you had to qualify for the tournament by either being a top 3 team in your conference or win some play-in games. In 2019, there were 84 teams, and now all the MLS teams come in, making the gauntlet for lower division teams that much more difficult. However, there are still some special teams that come every so often. Hey, remember the 2019 New Mexico United? Like Charleston Battery of 08, New Mexico certainly weren't world beaters in USL, finishing 10th in the Western Conference in their inaugural year. But despite this, they became the darlings of this year's tournament. First, in Colorado, their star striker Kevon Frater tied it up in the 94th minute, and then New Mexico would eventually go on to win the shootout. It was a game where New Mexico had more away fans show up than the home Colorado fans. Then they went on to Dallas and pulled off yet another win, and again, the away fans showed up in force. Now, honestly, I believe the US Open Cup should take a page from Copa del Rey and just let all lower division teams host until the semis. The reason I say that is because the US Open Cup means a lot more to fans of lower division teams, and you are going to consistently see better crowds if you let the lower division sides host. Now, even though this is what I want, we did still manage to get this amazing moment from New Mexico United. Ahead of their quarterfinal match against Minnesota with the help of the local bank, New Mexico United was able to charter a plane and fly 180 fans to Minnesota. For $250, you would get a plane ticket, a hotel room, and tickets to the game. Considering driving from Albuquerque to St. Paul would be 20 plus hours, and normal round-trip tickets from ABQ to Minnesota would be well over $500, this was a hell of a deal and an amazing gesture from the front office. Considering how fast these tickets were sold out, just goes to show just how important this tournament was for the fan base. In the end, New Mexico lost. By a lot. But I don't think anyone really cares about that. It was still an amazing run from this team that brought the community together. And that is what the best part is of the US Open Cup, bringing people together. Of course, we can't talk about the magic of the US Open Cup without bringing up probably my favorite Cinderella run of all time. Hey, remember 2017 FC Cincinnati? Okay, now while FC Cincinnati hasn't exactly been super successful on the field in MLS, remember they had a very solid team in USL, constantly among the top of the table. But what really got most people's attention was their support. averaging over 20,000 fans in USL was unheard of. They were obliterating USL attendance records, and they would have been near the top of MLS attendance. And it got to the point where you just couldn't ignore them any longer. In the 2017 U.S. Open Cup, FC Cincinnati advanced to the 4th round, where they faced off with in-state foe Columbus Crew. In the first ever Hell is Real derby, it would be FC Cincinnati in front of their wild fans at the Bailey that would get the surprise win. Thus, a rivalry was officially born. But what came next was even bigger. They were put on national TV. ESPN. The fact that a Sweet 16 game of the U.S. Open Cup was on TV, that was already crazy enough. But the fact that one of the teams was a USL team made it even more insane. I truly believe that this was essentially the tryout for Cincinnati to get into MLS. And boy, did they deliver. More than 30,000 fans showed up for this one. And even though the score was 0-0, this game was filled with action and drama. And in the PK shootouts, the legend of Mitch Hildebrandt was born, making 1, 2, 3 saves. And that image of him making the final save and the fans going crazy behind him, that is burned into my memory. Even though that was against my Chicago Fire, I couldn't help but be amazed by what Cincinnati accomplished. And I knew it was only a matter of time before Don Garber introduced them as an MLS team. FC Cincinnati would go on to defeat Miami FC in the quarters before falling to New York Red Bulls in the semifinals in extra time. Even though they ultimately came up short of their goal, this team still made a massive impact on soccer in this country. The thing is, these aren't the only stories from the U.S. Open Cup. Remember when amateur side Cal FC, then coached by Eric Winalda, took down the Portland Timbers? Remember when beer league side Christos FC scored a free kick against DC United and briefly led the match? And of course, there's probably a whole bunch of stories that came before the arrival of MLS. But, well, I can't talk forever. I gotta end this video eventually. Who will be the next Cinderella team? There are certainly some potential candidates for this year. But thank you to everyone that subscribed to my channel, and also thank you to everyone that subscribed to my Patreon. It really does mean the world to me that you're supporting me through all this. For more MLS content, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. For Teidige, den Fluss.